All right. Good evening, Panther Nation. It is a great day in Liberty Hill. As we get started today, I just want to take a moment for thanking all of y'all for being so flexible with the schedule today. We haven't seen wind chills like we saw this morning in many, many years. Brutal temperature. So to get that delayed start, 2 hours to let the sun come up. To protect us a little bit from the cold weather and make sure our heat was working and there were no broken water pipes and all the buses started after this holiday weekend was very beneficial to us. So hope you and your family had a great day. Hope your kids had a great day at school. And again, thank you for being flexible. As a reminder, tomorrow we will have normal school as normal. So the wind chill temperatures will be significantly higher and we're ready to go. So we look forward to finish out the week strong in Liberty Hill. All right, let's talk about proposed attendance boundaries for next year. As a reminder, right now these are just a proposal. We have a survey out there. We'll give the QR code to the survey again, but we've had many responses. My team has read through all those responses, and we greatly appreciate your feedback on that as well. All right. So let's start off why the attendance boundary changes against you again this year. I know a lot of y'all have asked, didn't you just do this last year? And the answer to that is, of course, yes, as we opened up Bar W Elementary last year. This August, we will open up Tierra Rosa Elementary, brand new elementary school in Santa Rita Ranch. Very excited about this. It's going to be a beautiful campus right across from Santa Rita Middle School. And we look forward to welcoming in new students. So with the new school, we need to redraw attendance boundaries. Another very big factor is relieving the overcrowding in Santa Rita Elementary School. You guys will see a chart here in a minute. We have over 1,000 students at Santa Rita Elementary School, a school that was just built for 800. And so we need to even out the overcrowding at Santa Rita Elementary, and Tierra Rosa will help us do that. The other thing we need to do is just balance the overall enrollment in our campuses and plan for future growth. I'm going to show y'all some slides tonight that talk about future growth, where it's coming from, and how we use that information to plan as we go forward. All right, just a reminder, in Liberty Hill ISD, we have some considerations anytime we do attendance boundaries. Number one, we want to minimize the number of students having to move campuses. Panther Nation, I've heard y'all loud and clear over the 5 years I've been here, the amount of moves you've had to make as we continue to grow in Liberty Hill. So we want to minimize those moves as much as possible. It's not always possible, but we try our best. Last year, when we moved a bunch of people to Bar W, we wanted to make that commitment to keep as many as we could from having to move again. Number two is balanced student enrollment across all campuses. We want to make sure that we keep those campuses somewhat equal in enrollment so that we can balance our resources across the district as well and make sure the needs of the students are met. It is our hope that we can create boundaries that will go unchanged until the next school is open. Right now, like I said, we're opening up Tierra Rosa in August, and then we'll open up a new school. Elementary 8 will open in the fall of 26. So we want these boundaries to stand for at least 2 years. We want to minimize the number of neighborhoods that are split. Really what we want to do is keep an entire neighborhood together. It's not always possible. I know Morningstar was split this year, but we do what we can to minimize that neighborhood split. We also want to create boundaries that are support safe and efficient transportation and bus routes. Safety, like we talked about the late start today with safety with the weather. We also want safe transportation routes to and from our school. And that includes walk routes, bike routes, bus routes, and parent travel routes. And then we want to minimize the need for portable classrooms. Due to the tremendous growth we had a couple of years ago, we had to add several portables in our district. And it is the district's commitment and your school board's commitment to make sure those portable classrooms are not needed to the maximum extent possible. Other considerations we make, and again, we talked about trying not to move neighborhoods that have recently moved. We understand what a burden that is on a family to have to move elementary schools. And so as consistent as we can make that, we want to do that. We also look at future campuses and predict those moves coming up to try to help us limit those moves. And then we have several neighborhoods that we know that are coming in. We want to assign those neighborhoods now and be transparent. So as you move into the neighborhood, you know you might be at this school, but you know in the future where your neighborhood, what school you might be attending. All right, I'll give you a second again. This is the Liberty Hill ISD Attendance Boundary Survey. It'll be open through January 19th, which is this Friday. We'll take all your previous input you've given us over the last month, any input you give us from the Zoom this evening, and we'll put that together. We have another in-person meeting next Thursday, the 25th, at Santa Rita Elementary School, and we'll give you another opportunity to give us input and look at any tweaks that might have been made to the boundaries you're going to see tonight. All right, let's just look at our latest demographic information. As you can see, this is a snapshot of the last 4 years and how much we've grown. We've grown 3,300 students from 2020-21 till this year. You can see our growth over last year was almost 1,000 students, and we've grown by 12.5%. And you can see our percentage growth over the last 4 years. Each year has been double-digit growth, and there's that 23.5% I mentioned 2 years ago in Liberty Hill. So we're still growing. We're still very active. You're going to see some slides in a little bit, lots of active subdivisions going, but wanted y'all to see what our current growth looks like. This next slide talks about the future growth. You have a chart up there in the corner that kind of looks at Liberty Hill, and the yellow line is where we are now, and you can see we're going to steadily grow over the next decade. The future growth you see there, we're looking to grow by 900 to 1,000 kids the next 3 years combined. You can see our percentage rates going down a little bit, but the number stays steady and going up, and we'll need more schools. And again, grateful for the support of the community as the latest bond will help us build Legacy Ranch High School. And then we have 2 elementary schools, Elementary 8 and Elementary 9, that are part of the latest bond package as well. You can see by 33-34, we're looking to have 17,000 students in Liberty Hill ISD. All right, this slide, back up one, please. All right, this slide shows the current capacity versus enrollment. Elementary campuses were built for 800, and you can see where we are on enrollment today. So you've got Burden and Hill in the 700s. You got Noble just under 700, Rancho Siena right at 800, Santa Rita over 1,000, and Bar W at 687. Our total capacity for elementary is 4,800, and our current total is 4,720 in our elementary schools. Next year with Tierra Rosa, that elementary capacity will grow to 5,600, and you can see the expected growth will have roughly about 5,000 elementary schools. Based on the option you'll see tonight, option 1, that's roughly what our enrollment will look like at the various campuses. And we'll come back to this number later in the program. I know everybody's concerned about elementary, but just taking a look at secondary real quick, you can see our current enrollments at Santa Rita Middle and Liberty Hill Middle. Those are both at 1,200 capacity. You can see we're in good shape as we move towards 2026. And remember, in 2026, we will open a new middle school right there where we're opening Legacy Ranch High School. You can also see the high school enrollment, what we're looking at for next year with Liberty Hill High School being around 2,100 and Legacy Ranch being around 350 with 9th grade only. All right, future planning as we look at when new campuses will need to come online. You see elementary number 6, Bar W came online this year. Tierra Rosa's coming online next year. as will Legacy Ranch High School. Then we'll skip a year. In the fall of 26, Elementary 8 will open. That is projected to open in the Lariat subdivision of County Road 214. And Middle School 3 building will be repurposed to a middle school at that point. And then you see we'll need 9 and 10 every other year. And we're looking at Middle School 4 and possibly start the planning towards the end of this decade for High School 3, hoping to have that open sometime in the early 2030s. All right, elementary attendance zone. What you see here in front of you is the current elementary attendance zones. We've got a scatter plot. So every elementary student where they're located in the district. And then we have a few that transfer in. Either they're a staff member's kid or they've been grandfathered. So you can kind of see geographically where they sit and where those borders are. The yellow border, as you can see, that's Santa Rita Elementary. That's the boundaries that we'll be splitting to open Tierra Rosa, and we'll do some adjustments accordingly to balance out the attendance. All right, so here's option one. Basically, as you go down the chart, or if you're looking east to west, you've got Liberty Hill Elementary. That boundary remains mostly unchanged in this scenario. Noble remains mostly unchanged, and Bill Burden remains mostly unchanged. Rancho Siena also remains unchanged, and Santa Rita Elementary will split in half. And you can see how the enrollments will come down there. And Bar W remains mostly unchanged, except for the Morningstar neighborhood, where we have houses going into Tierra Rosa as well. So that's option one. I'll give you a chance to look at that and ask your questions. Again, the main change is Tierra Rosa and families having to leave Santa Rita Elementary and some Bar W to go to Tierra Rosa. We also have the Ridge at Cross Creek in this option going to Tierra Rosa as well from Rancho. So I know looking at our survey results, they want us to reconsider that. So we'll definitely look into that. Okay, so there's a question. I'll answer that real quick because I know there's probably a lot of Morningstar people on here. The question is, with the new school projected to open in 2026, and that's in the Lariat subdivision, will Morningstar be moved again? So the new school Lariat will help us balance attendance boundaries to the west. I'll talk about a little bit later in this presentation what we're expecting on the west side, whether it's Butler Farms or Lariat or some of the land up 207 and what that's going to do to our enrollment. We also look at Santa Rita Ranch is selling as many as 2 houses a day right now, and that'll have an impact on Tierra Rosa as well. So we have another school site in Santa Rita Ranch, as well as in a subdivision called El Dorado, which is north of Santa Rita South. And I'll talk about that a little bit later in the program. All right, this is option 2. This just makes some minor tweaks. Again, here we pull a little bit of a few kids out of Noble and put them in Tierra Rosa. Not a lot of students at this point. We also need to look at the impact of Saddleback in Santa Rita and see where that attendance boundary needs to go. So option 2 just tweaks the eastern boundaries just a little bit. But really what we're leaning on right now is more of option 1, but we'd love to hear your feedback on this option or another option. All right, moving on to attendance zones at the middle school. As you can see, another scatter plot, you got that boundary running up 183, and we're able to hold those boundaries for now, hopefully hold those boundaries until we open middle school 3. And you can see how the enrollment is impacted each school. Again, those schools are a capacity of 1,200, and so we're in good shape for the next couple of years for middle schools until we get Legacy Ranch open and middle school 3 open. So no changes to middle school boundaries. All right, high school attendance zones. As you can see, there's all our current high school kids and where they're located. We have some enrollment projected out as Legacy Ranch grows from 9th to 10th to 11th to 12th. We've looked at this in detail. It's somewhat balanced. Again, I'm going to show y'all some neighborhoods we're looking at that might offset the balance, and we might have to expand the Legacy Ranch attendance zone a little bit to the north of 207, but we'll talk about the why with that, and that is a couple of years away. All right, looking at this map, all the green space you see are currently active building subdivisions. We have 28 actively building subdivisions in Liberty Hill, and we have 8 future subdivisions, which are depicted in yellow. And then if you can look really along 29 from 183 through Liberty Hill and towards the high school, you see light blue. Those are actually apartment complexes that are being planned, in addition to the 4 apartment complexes that are planned on Kaufman Loop, right there by Morningstar. So we're looking at that growth. If you can see my cursor, this green area is Lariat. At full build out, they will have over 1,600 homes. So that's a lot of houses, lots of kids for our district. This neighborhood right here to the west of the high school is Butler Farms. And in their first initial phase, they're looking at 2,100 homes, and they're going to expand all the way to the county line. And then we still see houses being built in Bar W, in Lively Ranch, and of course, Santa Rita Ranch. I mentioned Santa Rita Ranch is selling 2 houses a day at this time. Okay, here's another question. There are several apartments being built in Morningstar with the Ridge at Cross Creek. Will that possibly are considered in keeping us at Rancho? So we'll consider that number. So far in Liberty Hill, apartments don't yield a lot of students, but that could change with the current economic situation, with the price, interest rates, and houses, and the price of houses. We could see more and more students coming into apartment units. Right now, those apartment units in Kaufman Loop are zoned to Bar W Elementary. And so keeping Cross Creek at Rancho, those apartments will not be considered, but we can definitely look at the numbers. And again, one of those considerations is to move as few as possible. So we'll continue to look at it. Thank you for that question. All right. So I show this map as just a future map. You can see the red circles are where we have large neighborhoods building. I mentioned Butler Farms and Liberty Hill. You got Lariat. You've got a new subdivision with about 800 homes up 207, and you have a developer looking at buying 400 acres up 207 to build high-density homes as well. So we were looking at what it would take in a couple of years to expand that Legacy Ranch boundary across 183. It helps with transportation. It keeps students north of the North Fork of San Gabriel in a closer proximity to the high school. But right now, that's just future planning. I wouldn't think too deeply into that. We just want to look at how we can balance our high schools between the two. All right, so again, just an attendance boundary timeline. We've been reviewing the demographic data and the projected enrollment. We've been looking at your survey answers. We've shared a few options with the board. We'll continue to gather stakeholder feedback through surveys and community meetings. The next one will be in person. We'd love to visit with you and talk about ways to make this map even better and the results. And then we hope to get a final result out by Tuesday, February 20th. So that is our timeline. All right. One question we got asked on the survey is the map was not high density, and people really wanted a map that they could zoom in on and get a true idea of exactly where their house is, where it falls in these attendance boundaries. So on the Liberty Hill website, the team has done a really good job of creating an interactive map that you can zoom in search by address, and it'll pull up the current attendance boundaries, and it'll pull up the proposed attendance boundaries as well. Wanted to give you a heads up on that, and we'll put that on the web as well. There's a drop-down list up at the front. See where it says school year 23-24 in purple. You can click on that. You get a drop-down menu, and you can see proposed attendance boundaries for next year. And so you can take a look at that and give us some feedback as well on those boundaries. All right, so while we're waiting for the slideshow to come back, we had a question asked, can you review the capacity for the middle schools on the chart? Once again, briefly, and remember this slideshow will be up on our website as well. But the capacity for the middle schools is 1,200. It says, will there be an option for students along 183 border to choose middle schools if there's excess in capacity? So that's a really good question. Right now, we do not have a policy that allows students to choose what middle school they go to. Keep in mind, 2 years from now, we'll have a third middle school that's roughly right off of 183 that we'll have to pull in students from both the current boundaries to serve 183 and possibly pull in some new neighborhoods as well. As we look at our growth, as we look at our middle schools, when the third middle school opens, each middle school will be approximately 900 students, and we'll be able to grow all three of those middle schools together and keep those boundaries the same for several years until we open up middle school 4. Middle school 4, by the way, right now is scheduled to be located in the Butler Farms area out west of town. That'll give us 2 middle schools inside each high school attendance boundary, and we think that will help out with both traffic and feeder patterns. Again, here's the QR code for the attendance boundary survey. We've got a team here ready to answer your questions. And this presentation will be up on the website for you to look at as well. Okay, great question. It says, will the new school be ready earlier than Bar W was this year? This past year was a little chaos with the opening. Absolutely. If you remember with Bar W, we ran into some construction red tape that held us up. I do want to thank Joris Contractors for getting that school open as well as they had, but we're still working through issues with Bar W. The current date expected to turn over the new school to us is Memorial Day, and that will give us the summer to punch list, make sure everything's working right. We didn't have that opportunity at Bar W. Apologize to the community. We've done a really good job of opening schools, but that one cut it way close. Including roads and signal lights. So Tierra Rosa is ahead of schedule and we should be good. Speaking of Bar W, we have a finalized agreement between the county, the city of Leander, and the school district. So they will start construction on a signal light at Ronald Reagan, Bar W, and Rancho de Siena Boulevard. So the main roads that connects those two subdivisions, Ronald Reagan, will start construction on the intersection here pretty soon. And that should be ready to go by next school year. Panther Nation, as a reminder, place any questions you have into the question and answer, the Q&A tab on this Zoom. We have a team here to answer your questions. We'll answer them both in writing, and I'll speak to them as quickly as they come in as well. All right, so the question is, where will Morningstar be zoned to, and how long will they stay there? So if you look at both option 1 and option 2, most of Morningstar is going to the new elementary school, Tierra Rosa Elementary, with Omega Ranch staying at Bar W. I believe there might be parts of Morningstar that are staying at Bar W as well. I encourage you again to go to that interactive map and look where your specific address is and see where that works. So just some facts about Morningstar. Currently, there's about 300 students that live in Morningstar and another 50 that live in Omega Ranch. Looking over the next 5 years, we're looking at over 430 students in Morningstar and about 150 in Omega Ranch. I would love to have a school just for Morningstar, permanent home for the Morningstar. But since we don't have that option, we're going to try to keep everybody set. We're leaving a little bit of room in our schools for growth, so we don't have to move you again. I know we've moved you a lot, Morningstar, and I appreciate your patience. And this last move is to relieve the crowding at Santa Rita and get you a school a little bit closer to the neighborhood. That is a good question. Okay, the next question is, do you intend to bring back school buses to Morningstar? So it depends. I believe we bus Morningstar all elementary students and all high school students. I'm looking at my team. Is that correct? And there were some Morningstar students that were no longer bused for the middle school due to the closeness and the sidewalks. I think
there's a 2-mile radius, and we currently run transportation for middle schools because there are still some parts of that neighborhood under construction.
All right, I was getting some clarification from my chief of operations. We still do run some middle school buses due to construction in Morningstar. Every year we reevaluate the routes to make sure they're safe. And if there's any hazardous routes, we can definitely look at school buses. So I'm assuming that question was a middle school question, and we'll continue to look and evaluate that as construction continues in the neighborhood. All right, somebody asked a question on what is the boundary for Legacy Ranch High School. Right now it's 183. It's the same boundary as Santa Rita Middle School. We're looking at possibly pulling in some so far undeveloped neighborhoods that will come on in the future into Legacy Ranch to keep those schools balanced. But right now the boundary is 183. Oh, here's a question. Will Liberty Hill High School stay 5A? So back in October, we had our snapshot date, which gave us our total enrollment. And we had to turn in that snapshot of enrollment to the UIL. And they took all that and figured out what schools were going to stay in what conference. Liberty High School will stay 5A Division II for the next 2 years. Remember, they realign schools every 2 years. And Legacy Ranch High School, how they do that is they take our projected enrollment, which is around 350, and they double it to 700, and that puts us in a 4A Division II category. So Liberty Hill High School will be 5A for 2 years, and Legacy Ranch will be 4A D2 for the next 2 years. Projecting up 2 years from now, we'll look at the enrollment. We'll turn that in, and the UIL will let us know what conferences we go into and what divisions we go into. We will find out what conference Liberty Hill High School is in February. And then Legacy Ranch year one will not have varsity sports. So we will just pick up schedules as we can for the various sports. All right, the question asked, are there proposed attendance boundaries for high school 3? Right now, there's no proposed attendance boundaries for high school 3. Right now, the property we have identified that could possibly be high school number 3 is right at the intersection of 183 and 3405. And that is projected to take growth that's coming up 207, Lariat, possibly, and some neighborhoods like that. But we will start the planning for the build of high school 2 around 2027-28, with the possible opening in the first couple of years, 2031, 2032, something in there. So no attendance boundaries yet for high school 3. All right, great question. Is there a plan for traffic between Santa Rita Middle School and Tierra Rosa? So yes, you're always concerned with traffic, car traffic around there, especially all the traffic in that area is not just for schools, right? There's neighborhood traffic and there's construction traffic. What's going to help us with the 2 schools traffic is the fact that start and end times will be staggered, and the fact that our engineers have designed room for a lot of stacking on the property. So Tierra Rosa Elementary can stack approximately 200, 250 cars on the property. And Santa Rita Middle School with their new traffic pattern can stack even more than that. So definitely concerned about traffic, and we'll keep an eye on that. We will have lots of students who will be able to walk to both schools and ride their bike. And then, of course, we always have school buses too, so that can help alleviate some traffic. Great question on the traffic. Next question, any plans to reassign the Oaks at San Gabriel to a closer elementary school? Not this time. Eventually, we hope to get a school site closer to the Oaks of San Gabriel. Great neighborhood. Currently, we have just under 200 students, elementary students, that live in the Oaks of San Gabriel, with that growing over the next few years to be 260, 270 students in the Oaks of San Gabriel. So again, to keep the neighborhood together, we have to go where they fit the best. And this year is Bar W. We want to keep that neighborhood at Bar W one more year and evaluate. We have a school site in the back of Santa Rita Ranch, and we possibly look to acquire school sites down 29 to the east, even closer to the Oaks of St. Gabriel. So unfortunately, when you look at that chart, you look at the amount of enrollment we have at the other schools, there's just not room to put the 180, 200 students from one neighborhood in a different school. But great question. All right, this question is Omega Ranch going to stay together with each plan? If new people move in, would they go to a new school or to Bar W? So Omega Ranch right now is zoned to Bar W. What we saw this year, when our schools become crowded, as new people move in, they'll have to be assigned to school that has room. So hopefully we'll do a good enough job to stay just enough ahead of the growth so that won't happen. But right now, Omega Ranch is zoned to Bar W, and it will probably stay there until we get a new school open closer or in the back of Santa Rita Ranch. All right. When is El Dorado school going to be projected? So that's a great question. El Dorado is the neighborhood that is about to start building to the north of Santa Rita South on the west side of Ronald Reagan. Currently, they don't have any houses. We don't have a date or a school officially assigned to El Dorado. We do have a school site. It's going to depend on how quickly houses are being built, and we'll try to just stay 2 years ahead to get a school built to alleviate overcrowding. But right now, Tierra Rosa will serve our purposes for a couple of years. And then the next school in that area on that side of town will either be El Dorado or in the back of Santa Rita Ranch. Okay, great question. Do you know what neighborhoods will pull into the new third middle school? We do not at this time. I mean, we can speculate. But when you look at just geography, that middle school 3 will be right there at 183 and 258. So you just look at the neighborhoods closest to that location that can pull students from the north and from the middle to help balance the 3 middle schools once they're open in a couple of years. We'll go through this same process for the third middle school, for the next elementary, for the next high school. We'll go through the same process with y'all, talk through what we see, ask y'all for input. Last time we got really great input that made us really rethink and reconsider. We expect that again this year. You guys are great community and give us great feedback. And we look forward to seeing if someone out there has got a better idea. All right. So the question is, will there be a school bus from Tierra Rosa Elementary to Tierra Rosa section of Santa Rita, the part of our district that's in Santa Rita North? So that's an interesting question. So if the school was open today, there would be buses because we would have to bus people out of Santa Rita North down Reagan and back into Santa Rita Ranch. I believe Tierra Rosa, the road and the sidewalks are planned to be ready by the time that school opens. Time will tell. The latest update I have says that, but if there's no safe roads, if there's no safe way to walk or ride your bike to Tierra Rosa Elementary, we will provide bus transportation. Oh, good question, and thank you for this. They're asking, how is the hiring process going with Legacy Ranch High School? Very, very excited for the opening of Legacy Ranch High School. We hired a great principal in Mark Kohler. Many of y'all have met him. He's been out in the community doing meet and greets and coffee and chats. We've hired a secretary and we've hired a counselor that we're very excited about. Later this week, we have interviews for a head football coach. That will be followed by band director, and then we will start the process to hire all the other personnel in Legacy Ranch. Demand has been very, very high. Been very excited and impressed with the amount of applicants we have. So it's going to be a great school. It's going to be a great experience for the kids who start that high school and build those traditions. But the next step is getting the football coach and the athletic coordinator hired, and then shortly after that, the band director. All right, the next question: will siblings be able to choose Liberty High School if you end up changing the high school line? Oh, up to 07. My kid would be a senior, sophomore. So, yeah, I mean, our plan is to keep families together. Again, that last boundary I showed you is hypothetical, and it'll probably cover land that doesn't have houses on it right now, but definitely a consideration to keep families together. So that's a great question. All right, next question is there a plan for buses from Morningstar to Tierra Rosa Elementary? We've talked about that briefly. I think it just depends on the distance and whether it's safe. Construction has a lot to do with that. Traffic has a lot to do with that. We want our kids to be safe. So if there's a safe way to get there, we might have some of those kids walk, but we'll let you know as soon as possible what the bus routes are going to be from Morningstar into Tierra Rosa. All right, great question. Will Noble boundaries change at all in the next few years? I think they will. The current boundary we have has Lariat, the new builds in Lariat going to Noble. So as I mentioned before, Lariat's got 1,600 houses that are ready to be built. When we get that school open, the Lariat students will go to Lariat, and we'll start pulling other neighborhoods into Lariat as well. So that'll change Noble boundaries a little bit. I've heard some feedback from the community. And again, I'd love to hear more about, we've got people to the west that drive by Liberty Hill and Noble to go to Burden, and vice versa. We've got people going to Noble that are over on the east side of Reagan. So trying to get everybody to the closest school possible and have all the boundaries make sense without changing people's current school is hard to do, but definitely looking for feedback. But the change off the top of my head for Noble in the next few years will happen when Lariat opens, and we might look at some readjustments to the west as well. Okay, good question. What's projected on County Road 207 that will affect school boundaries? What is their time frame? So we have a neighborhood right next to our high school 3 property. So Braun Homes, I'm not sure it's been named yet. They're looking to build 800 homes. You have a couple other smaller neighborhoods in their building, and then you've got lots of land for sale. So I talked to a builder Friday that was looking at a possibility of building high density over several hundred acres. And you have some long-term planning going on in there as well. I think all of those neighborhoods are farther out than closer out. So we'll just have to look at that. It's very important for the district to stay in touch with all the developers and know their timeline and how many houses they're going to build and when. That helps us make the best decisions we can in the time frame given. So that's a great question on 207. So the Ridge Cross Creek on the current options, that's as will the Ridge Cross Creek be rezoned again next year. Just in option 1, we pulled the Ridge Cross Creek out and into Tierra Rosa. And again, that's just an option. We're looking at that. So interested in feedback. How that helps us as a district is now that roads are connected into Morningstar, that helps us with bus routes, being able to pick up kids. The Ridge at Cross Creek has roughly 40 students in it. And that helps us pick up bus routes and get them to Tierra Rosa or to the elementary school a little more efficiently. But we can definitely look at that neighborhood and see what the best course of action is going forward. All right, good question. We get this question asked. It says, can you speak on what the plan is for assigning mascots and school colors to each school? Right now, every school is a Panther, with the exception of Legacy Ranch, but what is forecasted for the future of each individual school as we continue to grow? I don't see the end of that question. Oh, as far as mascots and school colors go. So we're actually going to talk about that at our next board meeting. See the best course of action. I've seen districts do it a lot of ways. I've seen schools, when a new high school opens, I've seen schools adopt that mascot. I've also been in schools where every school has their own individual mascot. One of the things that's made Liberty Hill great, in my opinion, is everybody's been a Panther. And so everybody has that school spirit towards that high school. I'd like to see something close to that as we open Legacy Ranch and have kids build excitement and pride in their feeder pattern. Just knowing that changing schools' colors and mascots has a price tag, and we have other high schools opening. I think when Liberty Hill gets completely built out, might be 20 years from now, might be 30 years from now, we're forecasted to have 4 or 5 high schools. So that's something to consider as we move forward. So great question. More to come later. All right, Panther Nation, that's the last question. I sure do appreciate your time this evening. Again, please fill out that survey. My team goes over all of those comments, and with careful care and consideration, we ask for your input. We value your input. We want to hear from you. Like I said, a year ago, we had some community members give us some great things to reflect on and some great ideas. We hope to continue to have that. If interested, January 25th at Santa Rita Elementary in the evening, we'll be out there. We'll have some maps and some options and some feedback. We're going to put all the Q&A up on the website. And again, hope y'all stay warm. It's cold. We're on a normal schedule tomorrow. It's going to be a great day in Liberty Hill. It's going to be a great week. Appreciate your time tonight. Y'all stay safe. Have a great night.